Fire them up. Yes, you are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 1039 WYAB. It is a Founding Fathers Friday, ladies and gentlemen, and we arguably this is going to be my favorite one. I should have saved this for the end, but sometimes things just fall into place, and we're going with definitely top three. Top three. It's going to be a good one. Don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. We are streaming on Rumble. We are streaming on X. We are streaming on YouTube. And we are streaming at the mothership that is WYAB.com. So if you can't, go ahead and tune into our 50,000 watt blowtorch that is WYAB 1039. Like, share, and subscribe to the stream, ladies and gentlemen. You can follow me on X. You're going to want to do that for sure because I'm going to be reposting a lot of the information that I use on the radio program there. So you can trust but verify your broadcast host. Yes, trust but verify. Number, if you want to be on the program today, 601-879-0002. The text line is open, 601-879-5060. I'll tell you what, I had some great texts last night, 4 or 5 different conversations, and not saying that anybody changed their mind, but we did see it from a different point of view, and that's what really matters, and we're starting to make some progress there, so good for that. No matter what happens with the text, no matter what happens with the stream, no matter what happens with the phone calls, the mission here at the Andrew Gosser Show is standard. We are here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? You all are the saints. And today, it's just going to be another one of those days where you can sit there, rant, rave, scream, whine, moan, complain. It's not really going to get you anywhere. But if you sit there and talk in a logical, calm demeanor, voice, you're more likely to be persuasive. As a good friend of mine used to say, Andy, instead of raising your voice, you should reinforce your argument. Noted. Noted. So where we're going to start today is good old Senate. The Senate yesterday. Well, here, let's let Fox News tell us.
The Senate passing a bill overnight to fund TSA and most of the Department of Homeland Security.
But the legislation excludes funding for ICE and most of CBP.
Yep. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, Leader Thrun brings this out. And hey, we've got a deal. Now, it should be noted that before this deal was set to take place, President Trump signed an executive order saying pay the TSA agents. And some people say he could have been impeached for that. Even though the bill is passed, they might still be able to impeach him. I don't know. But President Trump said, we got to get these agents paid. We got to get commerce moving again. And let's be honest about this. If you listen to just the mainstream media, you would think that this is all the Republicans' fault. But when the budget bill was passed to continue funding the government 40 days ago, whatever it was, who was it that wanted the cutouts for TSA? Was it the Republicans who said, hey, we want to pass this budget continuation bill, but we have to make sure that we don't fund the Department of Homeland Security. We must not fund TSA. Who was the one who said that? It wasn't the Republicans. It was the Democrats. Yet, as I'm driving into the radio station this morning and I hear our news affiliate saying that this is exactly what the Democrats wanted, I thought, yes, you are right. It is what the Democrats wanted. They wanted to shut down Department of Homeland Security. They wanted to defund ICE. They wanted to shut down TSA because they thought and they wanted to cause as much pain and misery on the American traveler, and quite frankly, not even the American traveler, just the travelers in general. How many people coming over from England, coming over from international country, whether on vacation or business, and seeing these lines at TSA? They're looking at this like, what is America doing? I had one of my Democrat friends from back up in Illinois text me and say, haha, Trump caved. What kind of delusion are these people under? What kind of craziness is it that would make people think that it was okay to shut down TSA? And make no mistake about this. Make no mistake about this. This was the Democrat carve out. So what happened at 2 a.m.? Well, did they do a roll call vote? Did they do a bunch of speeches saying how they're happy to come to past the impasse? Did they have go out to their surrogates in the news media and say, we won, we won"? Nope. As my friend Marie texted in, at around 2:19 a.m., the Senate passed the DHS funding bill, HR 7147. So it's a House resolution. And that's good. But it was done with a voice vote, just where the 13 senators that were awake at 2 o'clock in the morning all said aye, and then they strolled out and went home. No accountability. No, we're sorry. No apology to the American people explaining why they did what they did. Still, no one can tell me why the federal government shut down TSA. What good did it do shutting down Department of Homeland Security and TSA? Republican or Democrat, feel free to call in 601-879-0002 and try to explain this to me because you're a better person than me if you can figure this out. No individual votes were recorded. I haven't heard the actual yays and nays on this, but you would assume there were no nays, and it, just like I said, the few senators. Well, they had to have at least 51 people, or say whatever the quorum is in the Senate. I think it's 60. So they did have a lot of senators there at 2 o'clock in the morning. But then, what makes this even more rich is what the Senate did after they opened up DHS and TSA. Did they take up the Save America Act? No. Did they take up any of the other important legislation being transmitted from the House over to the Senate? No. If you had to guess, Mr. and Mrs. Mississippi, what the US Senate did, what would you guess? If you said immediately recess the Senate so they could go home, that would be correct. But ladies and gentlemen, I think there was another twist to this plot. Because the Senate was gonna go home no matter what. And this is coming from Fox Business. And this was a headline that slipped by me. I actually had it in my stack of stuff for yesterday, but when the show gets going on a heater like it did yesterday, you just go with it. And I appreciate all the phone calls yesterday. Lots of people asking me about Ephesians. That's always nice. From Fox Business, Delta Airlines suspends VIP services for Congress members amid DHS shutdown, TSA delays. This is absolutely priceless. You can't make this up, ladies and gentlemen. Members of Congress are losing a perk of flying Delta Airlines because of the Department of Homeland Security shutdown. Fox Business confirmed Tuesday morning that the Atlanta-based Delta has suspended specialty services for members of Congress. Did you know that members of Congress get lots of special services? Delta has traditionally given VIP priority service to congressional members, allowing them to skip TSA lines and escorting them to their gates. So Congress votes to shut down the TSA, but whenever they go to fly, they just get to jump the shark. They get to jump the line. Rules for thee, but not for me. But wait, there's more. Now members of Congress will be told they are going to be treated just like other passengers of their respective SkyMile status. Additionally, Delta was suspending special congressional desk service for lawmakers until the government shutdown ends, according to the Atlanta Journal and Constitution. Maharashi had a special name for them. I'm not gonna give it the name, though. The airport's chaos In the airport chaos, traveler frustrations, and long wait times through the first weekend of the busy upcoming spring break travel season have apparently hit too close to home for Delta, which has its headquarters in Atlanta. Some of the VIP perks that Congress gets is they get escorted from when they get dropped off curbside through check-in. They don't wait in check-in. They get through TSA, and they get escorted either to the VIP lounge or straight to the gate with priority boarding. Now look, politicians, because of where they are in society and how America is right now, we get looked at differently. I can tell you this, when I was the highway commissioner and I walked into the room, even if they hated my guts, they were always nice to me. And they'd say, "Hey, how's it going? Have you know about this project?" And to be truthful, I never allowed their sweetness or their fake kindness to persuade me, but I always listened. And when there was a real project that was on the list to get done, I would always go back and say, "Hey, I appreciate you coming up to me yesterday and talking to me about the Dennis Avenue Bridge project. This is where it's at. This is where we're going with it. It's scheduled to be done in 2 weeks." Whatever the case was with the deal. It's just one of those things that happens. But don't think for 1 minute that these congressmen and these senators don't get a bunch of perks that aren't talked about with Delta. And if Delta's doing it, United's doing it, American's doing it, Delta's doing it, Spirit Air well, Congress ain't flying Spirit, let's be truthful about that. I just find it a little bit appalling that, number 1, it was done on a voice vote. Someone should have roll called it. I wish someone would have had the stones, and it only takes 1 person to roll call and seconded for a roll call. 2 brave senators to do that, just to put everybody on the record, because now, because of a voice vote, we'll never know. Well, everybody will be assumed to have voted for it unanimously, and I think that's even how it's reported. Absolutely dreadful. And when we get back, we're gonna talk about a new governor candidate in the state of Vermont. And when you hear about it, you're going to see why it almost makes sense, ladies and gentlemen. You are tuned into the Andrew Gossett Show on 1039 WYAB. It's a Founding Fathers Friday. We'll be right back. And we are back here at the Andrew Gosser Show on 1039 WYAB. We are moving and grooving, rocking and rolling. And truly, just as we get ready to go into this next story, and I'll prime the next story with things you need an ID to get services done. What what services do you need an ID to get services completed for you? And what age do people normally get an ID? But we got to go to this breaking news. And I'm just going to read the headline here. House Ethics Subcommittee finds Representative Sherfilis McCormick guilty of 25 violations. Wow, the House Ethics Subcommittee finds Representative Sherfilis McCormick guilty of 25 violations. The House Ethics Committee found that the Democratic representative, I'm just going to call her Sheila from now on, of Florida committed 25 ethics violations. What kind of ethics violations do you say? Well, let's go to NBC News. After a rare and dramatic public hearing, a special House Ethics Subcommittee on Friday found Representative Sheila McCormick of Democrat of Florida guilty of 25 ethics charges, capping a 3-year investigation into allegations she stole millions of relief funds and funneled some of them into her own congressional campaign. Now, and again, she's found guilty, so there's no allegedly here. Going to Ground News, where this came across my stream, she faces federal charges for allegedly stealing $5 million in COVID-19 relief funds and using it for personal purchases like a diamond ring. Remember when that hurricane came through? And if you had a Trump sign in your yard, how you wouldn't get FEMA funds, how you were put to the back of the line? You know, Washington anymore isn't more than a bunch of people figuring out how to make the system best work for them by pretending that it works for you and it works for me. Let's get back to this story right here. The secret vote came after the state representative Sheila, or Congresswoman Sheila, and her attorney sat for nearly 7 hours televised House trial, after which lawmakers on the panel deliberated overnight for hours before reaching their decision. You either did the crimes or you didn't, you know? Congresswoman Sheila Sherfilis McCormick has denied any wrongdoing and pleaded not guilty in a separate but related federal crime case. I look forward to proving my innocence, the Congresswoman said in a statement. Until then, my focus remains where it belongs, showing up for the great people of Florida's 20th District who sent me to Washington to fight for them. Oh, those politicians are fighting. But you know where they're not fighting? At the airport, because they're getting their VIP treatment to get back on the airline so they can get out of Washington after holding America hostage for 40 days by clamping down on TSA. My goodness gracious. Our elected officials anymore, it just gets wilder and wilder. The delusion gets greater and greater. We get focused on so many things that we can't even see all the wrongdoing that's going on. And again, I just pulled this up for the story. This is coming from ethics.house.gov committee members. Who are the members on this? Well, the Democrats, the ranking member is Mark DeSanter. And then there's Deborah Ross, Glenn Ivey, Sylvia Garcia, Suhas Subramaniam. And then the Republicans are Brad Knott, Nathan Moran, Ashley Hinson, Andrew Garbino, and the chairman is Mississippi's own Michael Guest. So they're doing work. Now, if we could only get to those sexual harassment cases in the Epstein files, maybe we have a little bit more to talk about, a little bit more to do. This is not breaking news, but it is interesting. You know, our founding fathers were so wise and were so smart when they wrote the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. The things that needed explicit detail, They wrote it down and put it in the Constitution, the sections in the articles. Where they didn't need a lot of explicit detail, they left the powers enumerated, given back to the states. So it goes without saying that sometimes states just simply overlook things. States just simply think that something is common sense, critical thinking. 14-year-old running for governor is the first teen to get on the Vermont's general election ballot. A 14-year-old running for governor. Now let's think about this for a second. He survived the court challenges to get on the ballot, but is he actually going to be able to hold a job at 14? What are the work rules for a 14-year-old? Not just the federal ones, but the state ones. Does this kid have an ID? He doesn't have a driver's license yet. Usually the first time a kid gets an ID is if their parents are in the military and they need a dependent ID card, or they're getting their permit and the driver's license. That's usually where somewhere between 15 and 16 is when you get your first ID. This kid isn't normally even in the major pool of having a legal ID yet. And how hard will it be for him to get a legal ID? He can't go to the polls to vote for himself. How will his voters vote? Will his voter base be disenfranchised because there may be many of them under the legal voting age? Sometimes you have to illustrate absurdity with absurdity. I'm sure when the state of Vermont was formed, they never imagined a 14-year-old running for office. They would be mocked, ridiculed, scorned. Actually, they wouldn't have any of that because no one was stupid enough to even try something like that. But yet, here in 2026, here we are. Something else on the bingo card I never would have thought I had to come across and read and comment, and I found it entertaining. After working as a legislative page in the Vermont State House, the 14-year-old freshman at Stowe High School now has his sights set on the corner office. In November, Dean Roy will be the first candidate for governor under the age of 18 to appear on the state's general election ballot. First one. I didn't expect to necessarily to win, he said. What I do expect is to start up the movement and to get more young people to come in behind me and say, yeah, we also want to make change. And that is a theme that Democrats say they understand, but really don't when you look at their party leadership, when you got Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all these old, over 70-year-old people leading the Democrat Party. And Republicans, we're not immune from that either. We've got our old and moldies sitting around there bullying the Senate, like Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham. Equal opportunity here. And that was one of the texts I got yesterday, is somebody who doesn't agree with me saying that, Andy, you call it like you see it. You're calling balls and strikes. You're not letting off on one side or the other. Nope, got to call it right down the middle. What does it say about the boomer generation and the older Gen Xers, those who are born in the middle, the early, middle, late 60s, those Xers who are gripping the power with all their might? They're destroying our country, whether we want to admit it or not. And the youth of America are waking up, and we're here for it. We've got WYAB's very own Blake Bartlam, who guest hosts on the Andrew Gosser Show. He's got a couple of days off coming up, and if he can make it in, of course, we'll have him on. I always like building the bench, promoting the youth. But a 14-year-old running for governor in the great state of Vermont in 2026. My goodness gracious. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We'll be right back. And we are back here at the Andrew Gosser Show. It's going to be a great weekend at the Gosser clan household. Tomorrow night, we're doing the Hot Ones Challenge with friends and family. That's always going to be fun. And another date night thing that we do is we go antiquing. We do. And Antique Mall of the South, that's a great place to go. Number one, they always have new and exciting things to look at. we always come out of there with something. Last time we went, we ended up getting this cake platter thing with the dome on top for when we go to our lunches at church. We bring Sweet Pea always cooks up either a pie or cake, and now we've got one of these fancy glass things. Great prices. There's always something new, and there's over 70 different vendors in there. And some people, you go out, make a day date, lunch, dinner. Next thing you know, you're spending a couple Benjamins. You can spend some Benjamins at Antique Mall of the South. Don't get me wrong, but it's kind of interesting to go to see the different things, whether it be something for your kitchen or you. They've got a lot of books too, and I found a couple of childhood books that I remember my mother and father reading me. Some good memories. It's clean and organized. It's a great shopping experience. It's something great to do with the spouse. It's not necessarily sitting down and eating. You're walking around looking at stuff. It's a great place. It's on Highway 51 in Ridgeland, open Monday to Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So go ahead and check them on out. And we really appreciate Antique Mall of the South being a sponsor here in the Andrew Gosser Show, WYAB. We really do appreciate it. Again, I'm about ready to move into something, and Brother Rick just has to say, watch this, crack a beer, and says, hold it. 2 or 3 days ago, a oil refinery plant caught on fire in Houston. And we were talking about it on the phone. We're like, remember all those fires from all those food processing plants that last year and the year before, they just started catching on fire, and we were wondering what the heck's going on. It looked so suspicious, and they were all clustered around the same amount of time. But we really didn't pay too much attention to it. We got distracted with other things, March Madness, TSA shutdown. Well, ladies and gentlemen, clutch your eggs, because guess what? This is coming from News Alert. Breaking. At this time, emergency crews are on the scene of a massive fire at an egg farm near Corwith, Iowa, which has spread to multiple buildings. Firefighters are working to contain the blaze to prevent further damage. Egg prices going up. You all got chickens last year, and you're like, oh, great. You processed them because the egg prices came back down. You didn't want to mess with your chickens anymore. You had your hens for a while. They gave you great eggs, and now they're going to give you some chicken and dumplings. Well, now egg prices going up with another eggplant fire, not at the BA farm. It's just insane to me. We were talking about the youth getting more involved in politics. And with CPAC going on right now, there's a very big divide. And I got some of this from Ground News, but I've got some audio that I want to share too, because it just goes to show you the youth of America is ready to take the leadership helm if those people who are in leadership right now don't start leading. CPAC is a way for that. With Nick Shirley and what he's done in Minnesota and now California, he was given a prominent point at CPAC. He gave a 10-minute speech, and it was really good. And I want to interject something here too, because it is the elephant of the room. We did lose this generation's leader in Charlie Kirk when he was martyred and assassinated on September 10th of last year. And we are seeing a fractious divide, something that Charlie was a master at navigating, bringing people together while still having tough conversations. And I know that there are the conspiracy theorist people out there with the airplane that went off the radar and Mossad agents in the crowd and Lord knows what else. Candace Owens going bat spit crazy. But the beat goes on. The war continues to be fought. We miss Charlie, but we've got a Charlie Mike for Charlie Kirk. Charlie Mike is a military Army code word for continue the mission. And Nick Shirley is, and he's given the blueprint out to so many people. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that some of this credit does need to go to Sean O'Keefe in Project Veritas, now OMG Media. some of that has to be given the credit there. But there are young reporters out there doing incredible work, and I just want to play a little bit of sound from CPAC because Nick Shirley makes some great points.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here and to be able to speak to you guys today. And I'm not here to speak on behalf of Republicans nor Democrats. I'm here to speak on behalf of we the people. I think nowadays we can all agree that we all just want to live the American dream and have the best life possible. However, it feels that sometimes, actually a lot of times, non-controversial issues are becoming controversial inside of America.
Yeah, all sorts of issues that should be non-controversial, like locking pedos up. It shouldn't be a big deal, but all of a sudden it's a big deal. Illegal immigration. Man, if you ever you want a good laugh and a good read, go to the Facebook page Mississippi Politics and watch some of those whiny liberals over there. Great content, great time.
For instance, if you take a look at the idea of deporting illegal migrants, that word is illegal. That should not be controversial.
Nope, it's not. And the thing about it is the feel of this CPAC is very different from CPACs in the past. Very positive. I can tell you the heaviness of what's happening in Iran is actually dividing CPAC. It just seems that people who are 35 and older seem to be more supportive of what's happening in Iran, and people 34 and under are more against it. And that's understandable, actually. We'll go into it in a minute.
Or the idea that showing your ID to vote has become controversial. That's not controversial either. The idea that fraud is bad has become controversial. How is that controversial?
How is it that you can go out there and point out fraud, and the governors of 2 states, Tim Walz of Minnesota and Gavin Newsom of California, come out there and mock this kid for pointing out the billions of dollars of fraud? And I continue to say it, by the time we figure out this whole bill, it's going to be trillions of dollars. You will have been able to pay for the Iran event, war, conflict, whatever you want to call it, 5 times over with the amount of fraud that we've put in to Minnesota and California and all the rest of the states when it all comes out in the wash.
I know a little bit about fraud. I know a little bit about Minnesota daycares as well. And it's crazy to think that we live in a world where somebody who exposes fraud can then be painted as the bad man from the politicians where he exposed the fraud. Shouldn't they be excited to know that the fraud is being exposed, because that's not a Republican dollar or a Democrat dollar, it's actually our dollars.
And that's where I want to leave this. And this is where I want to reach out to, quite frankly, the Black community. Those dollars that are being sent to Somalia right now, and Somalia, by the way, is having a construction boom like you wouldn't believe. They've got multi-million-dollar cranes over there, and you're wondering how the heck are they affording this? I'll tell you how they're affording it. Fraud schemes on the American taxpayer, paid for by people from Minnesota, paid through by Somalis in Minnesota, California, Washington, Ohio, and Michigan, and the state of Maine, are sending money from taxpayers from Mississippi. Our money that should be staying right here in Mississippi is going elsewhere. This isn't a Democrat issue. This isn't a Republican issue. This is an America First issue. And we can argue about all the other craziness that we have to argue about. But when we have massive multi-billion-dollar fraud, and I will again say that it's going to be $1 trillion by the time we get all said and done with it, we should be going after this with lightning fast speed. But instead, because of the mainstream media, because of America's short attention span, which is by design, not sure if you saw, but Google and Alphabet and Meta were all found guilty of manipulating thought through mechanisms like infinite scrolling. It never stops. It just goes on and on and on. It's terrible. Things like this happen, and people have already forgotten about Minnesota. Unfortunately, they've already forgotten about California. I know I harp on CBS radio news, but at least CBS regular news went out to California to look at the hospice fraud, and they found millions and millions, if not billions of dollars worth of fraud over there too. At some point, the check is gonna come due, and there's a lot of great people who deserve to have the benefits that Americans voted for other Americans and not for illegal aliens and illegal immigrants. It just is what it is. And you could hear from the audio in CPAC, normally lines that would be really thunderous and applause, not so much. The wind is out of the sails a little bit at CPAC. Whether that be because of the Iran war, whether that be because a lot of millennials, Gen Zers, and Gen Alphas are not as enthused, that's to be determined. But right now, America is on a tipping point, and we need to start singing all from the same sheet of music. Because if not, we're going to lose it. America is just one generation away. If we're not careful, we're going to lose it. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We'll be right back.
There you see President Obama in Denver this week. White House even has a hashtag for these outings. They call it "The Bear is Loose." With the president taking some heat for shooting pool, but not going to the border to see that crisis firsthand.
We send children back to Mexico. We send children back all over the world.
But they're not in those situations.
Well, they are in those situations, and things inside
the border to see that crisis firsthand.
We send children back to Mexico.
There you see President Luce. With the president taking
Cause and effect, ladies and gentlemen. Cause and effect, ladies and gentlemen. You are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9. And, you know, it's important that you have integrity with what's going on and you call out both sides of the aisle. And I do realize that I rip on the left a lot, but we rip the right too. Bill Kristol, massive Trump hater, massive Republican. There are many people who used to say he was a great Republican back in the 2000s and early 2010s, 2015 timeframe. Bill Kristol woke up this morning to say, nice to woke up to good news. How about wake up to good news? The Democrat opposition wins on no new funding for ICE and Border Patrol. All credit to the Senate Democrats who held firm and prevailed. All honor to the people of Minneapolis who showed the way in resisting and defeating the forces of authoritarianism. Bill, you know, the internet doesn't forget. The streets don't forget. This is ABC News back in the day.
taking some heat for shooting pool, but not going to the border to see that crisis firsthand.
We send children back to Mexico. We send children back all over the world.
But they're not in those situations.
Well, they are in those situations, and things in Central America have been tough for a long time. But the idea that you're going to let unaccompanied minors just come into the U.S. because of a loophole in the 2008 law that allows you to send the Mexican kid back and the Honduran kid gets to stay. And that's not sensible. And so that the Republicans are going to propose this week on the Hill amending the 2008 law to have even treatment for everyone. And the president does have to send a message, you can't come here. And why is this happening? David talks about this has been a problem for decades. Why are these kids suddenly flooding this place?
Why is that? Why is it that under Democrat administration, when Obama wasn't president, it was okay to look tough on the border, even though he really wasn't. It was okay. And don't forget, it was President Obama who put the kids in cages. I know that rumor goes around on X every so often, and it has to get community noted to heck and back because it was a 2014 photo where President Obama put kids in cages, not Trump. Why is it that this TDS that's going through not just America, but around the world, and it can be other derangement syndromes. It's almost like social media has just made us so anti whatever we're anti that whenever we hear the word, we automatically, our brain thinks a certain way, it clicks a certain way, and now it's just like it's over. Here, let's finish this up with Bill Kristol real quick.
Place because the president amnestied all the kids who were already here in 2012, and people in Central America decided. So the Republicans. Can I just say one thing? He just finished. He amnestied all the kids who are here, and every sensible person in Central America thought, "Hey, great! If I can get my kid into the U.S., there'll be an amnesty."
Yep, and that's what started this whole thing, and that's why we're in the mess that we're in now. No one wants to admit it. Everybody wants to blame everybody else. And meanwhile, our border, while it is secure now, thanks to President Trump, it was wide open from 2020 to 2024. Well, 2021 to 2025 when Biden was in office. He was elected in 2020. Look, in the next hour, we've got Founding Fathers Friday. This is definitely a top three-er. You're not going to want to miss it. I'm really excited, especially after yesterday's show where we were talking about American culture and American history. That's part of what we do here at the Andrew Gosser Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Yep, you are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show, and it's a Founding Fathers Friday. We are streaming on Rumble. We are streaming on X. We are streaming on YouTube. We are streaming at the mothership, WYAB.com. So if you can't pick up our radio signal on the 50,000 watt blowtorch, that is WYAB 1039, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the stream. I would really appreciate it. Appreciate a follow on X at Andrew Gosser, ANDREWGASSER. Phone number today, if you want to be on the program after Founding Father Friday, of course, 601-879-0002. Text line is open, 601-879-5060. You know, the mission at the Andrew Gosser Show is standard. We are here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? People like this founding father is a saint. You're all are the saints. And those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it. And today's founding father, ladies and gentlemen, is Charles Carroll of Carrollton. And I have to say that before we get into the write-up and the research that I did, this was probably one of the coolest researches that I've done. When I taught biblical citizenship a couple times from 2022 to 2024, haven't done it in a while. This guy is the real deal. And let's dig into it. Charles Carroll of Carrollton was born on September 19th, 1737, and he died November 14th of 1832. He was a Maryland plantation owner, a politician, a founding father, and he earned the suffix of Carrollton. Now, the reason that they called him of Carrollton is because Charles Carroll was a very common name. It's kind of like John Smith, and so he distinguished in that from his father, Charles Carroll of Annapolis, and other relatives. He signed the Declaration on August 2nd, 1776, as one of 4 of Maryland's delegates. So this guy's coming from Maryland. And that brief intro, I pulled most of that information from Wikipedia. I also got some of it from charlescarrollhouse.org. He is the only Roman Catholic among the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence. And what people don't realize about our nation when at its founding, it had a very anti-Catholic sentiment running through the country. There were laws that were passed specifically against the Catholics. I was reading about it. I was absolutely floored by it. And one of the places that had really strong anti-Catholic sentiment was Maryland, where, strangely enough, there were a lot of Catholics that had relocated there. They were facing legal restrictions on voting as well as holding office. He is one of the wealthiest men in the American colonies. He had vast estates and plantations, like I said, and we'll get to the slavery issue. I promise we will. Yeah, he was a high-risk participant. The king knew who he was, and he stood to lose everything. And, it's almost, I don't want to compare anybody living today to our founding fathers, but there are people who are putting themselves out there in the public square of ideas, in the ire of the mainstream media in the public square. He is the longest living signer of the Declaration of Independence, dying at age 95 in 1832, 56 years after the adoption. He outlived all others, including John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, who both died on July 4th. That was really one of the things that came up in this, and we'll get to it in a little bit, but they keep on bringing up how John Adams and Thomas Jefferson both died on July 4th. That's coming from Charles Carroll House as well. He was born in Annapolis, home of the world's greatest United States Naval Academy. We produced the finest sailors out of there. And he comes from an Irish Catholic family with roots in Maryland back to the 1600s. And it goes through his whole family lineage. Don't really want to do that. But he ended up going to study law in France at the Middle Temple in France, and also at the Middle Temple in London. He returned back in 1765 and took over the family estate called Carrollton, and lived as a gentleman planter while building one of the largest fortunes in the colonies. And this is coming to according to the UK website that has a whole story on him. He wrote influential letters in the Maryland Gazette under the pseudonym First Citizen. He ended up being doxxed before doxing was a thing. Being pro-Catholic back in the day, when our country was being founded, wasn't very popular. But people ended up figuring out who he was. Defending colonial rights and criticizing oppressive taxes and governance, not just against Americans, but also Catholics. It made him a prominent patriot figure before he even joined the formal Revolutionary Army or the Congress. He served on the committees of correspondence, helped draft Maryland's first state constitution, and joined the Continental Congress in 1776. This is something really interesting that was brought out after I read and researched on him. I didn't pick it up at first, but he arrived too late for the vote of the Declaration, but still signed it willingly. Legend says that when someone said there are too many Charles Carrolls in Maryland, potentially allowing deniability, he boldly shouted out of Carlton, so the British would know exactly to whom to target. And we all love leaders like that, who put their neck out there on the line, like the guy who scored the winning goal for the gold medal hockey team, Hughes. You know, we love Patriots. That's why we have an NFL football team called the Patriots. Now, mainstream media doesn't like it, but I digress. And then once he screamed it out, someone yelled at Carlton back, "Well, there goes $1 million," referring to his fortune. And this is coming from Descendants of the Declaration, 1776.com. And I always do get your feedback from these Founding Father Fridays. When you want sources, I try to source them right there. During the war, he served on the Board of War, helped finance the effort, and even joined a diplomatic mission with Benjamin Franklin to Canada to recruit allies. He remained a moderate Federalist, so he was more in power of a centralized power and not necessarily a states' rights kind of guy. Later in his career, he became one of Maryland's first U.S. senators from 1789 to 1792. After retiring from politics, he supported infrastructure projects, including the founding of the B&O Railroad. You know, I actually have one of those engines on my model railroad at home. I've always liked the B&O, and when I found out that he formed this up, or formed the B&O Railroad, it just kind of made me appreciate him a little more. Now, I promised you, because there's a couple people who say I don't talk about slavery enough and how the Founding Fathers either had slaves or didn't have slaves. So I'm just going to read this because it just is what it is. He opposed slavery in principle, calling it a great evil, and introduced a gradual abolition bill in the state of Maryland. Although it didn't pass, he later supported colonization efforts for abolition. But the truth is his plantations did own slaves. And he had often debates, he's freeing his slaves, would they just be captured and taken elsewhere? It's a really fascinating debate, and something that deserves like its own show, about some of the abolitionists who supported freeing the slaves and then got bogged down by saying either other founding fathers, other leaders saying, what happens when we free them all? How do we take care of them? Can they take care of them? Just fascinating questions that now in 2026 seem very simple. We can just answer it with a snap of our fingers. But it was definitely something that was more difficult. And I, by the way, don't condone slavery, never did, think it's wrong. But again, and that's coming from Wikipedia, by the way. Carroll was a devout Catholic who strongly believed in religious liberty for all Christian sects. All Christian sects. This is where the descendants of the Declaration of Independence, they actually have, I got to pull this up here. They actually go in there and say that he was argued for the separation of church and state. Actually, he didn't. He just wanted religious freedom of all the Christian sects. And the reason, sects, S-E-C-T-S. And the reason that he wanted this in there was because he wanted Catholics to be able to abide under the same laws as the Protestants, as the Quakers, whoever else. In nowhere did he ever talk about Islam or any other religions, because this is a Christian nation, and we're about to find out right here. He had 7 children with his second wife, Mary Molly Darnell, but only 3 survived adulthood. And this is something else, too, that was kind of a little bit concerning, is he was engaged to a woman. Actually, Mary is his first wife, but he was engaged to a woman, and unfortunately, she died before they got married. And he searched for a long time to find someone to marry, and he ended up marrying his cousin. It just is what it is. And they ended up having 7 kids, 3 survived. His cousin was John Carroll, the first Catholic bishop, later Archbishop in the United States. At his death in Baltimore, it was more nationwide as the last link to the Declaration signers. Maryland state song, Maryland, My Maryland, honors him in its lyrics. Remember Carroll's sacred trust. And this is where it really starts hitting home for me. Because I get into these debates here online saying that we argue about the separation of church and state. Our founding fathers were all deists. They weren't believing in Jesus, that they weren't Christians. So I always like going to the facts, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm laying them on pretty heavy here. It's not to sit there to beat you over the head if you're not. That's your decision. I'm not here to do that. I'm just letting you know what the facts are, and then you can decide. Here's one quote. Without morals, a republic cannot subside any length of time. They therefore are decrying for the Christian religion, whose morality is so sublime and pure, which ensures the good eternal happiness, the undermining of the solid foundation of morals, the best security for the duration of the free government. That's pretty blunt right there. And don't we have that problem today? Whether we look in Congress with the sexual harassment cases being hidden, Epstein files, grooming gangs. I mean, we've just sunken morally. Where do morals come from? These are questions that aren't debated in college really anymore. We're just given a liberal trope. They're not debated in high school. If you're early Gen X, you got some of this in schooling, but if you're later on Gen X or millennials, you ended up losing it. On his motivation for the revolution, this was a letter to Reverend John Stratford in 1827. To obtain religious as well as civil liberty, I entered zealously into the revolution, and observing the Christian religion dividing into many sects, I found that the hope no one would be so predominant as to become the religion of the state. So again, he doesn't want special treatment for any one religion. He just wants the Christian religion. So whether you're a Protestant or a Baptist or a Catholic, that really affected him. On signing the Declaration, when I signed the Declaration of Independence, I had in view not only our independence from England, but the tolerance of all the sects professing the Christian religion and communicating to them all great rights. And here you get these videos on YouTube of professors just smacking down kids who didn't get educated properly on Charles Carroll of Carleton. I've got so many more of these. On slavery, this is important. Can't forget this one. This was a comment in the Maryland Senate. Why keep alive the question of slavery? It is admitted by all to be a great evil. Let an effectual mode of getting rid of it be pointed out, or let the question sleep forever. He was basically telling them back during the Maryland Senate, we got to get rid of this now, or it's going to linger on forever and ever. And he was right, because we're still suffering from what happened over 100 years ago today. It's almost like, we can forget certain points of the past, our faith past, but we can't forget the slavery past. I say we can't forget both. There's no one here who wants slavery to come back, although slavery is more predominant in the world today than it was when slavery was in America, because in America we got rid of slavery. But over in Africa right now, black people are being sold by other black people daily. Kind of hypocrite on that issue. On its greatest satisfaction in old age, I have lived to my 96th year. I have enjoyed continued health. I have been blessed with great wealth, prosperity, and most good things which the world can bestow. Public appreciation, esteem, applause. But what I now look back on with the greatest satisfaction to myself is that I have practiced the duties of my religion. Charles Carroll was such an honorable guy, and he always put God in front of himself, and God blessed him for it. Now, people will say, I know many people put God in front of themselves and they weren't blessed like that. Well, you don't necessarily always get the blessing right when you put God first. I know I'm a little long, so I'm going to go ahead and take a break, but I got some more quotes, and I want to make sure I get all these quotes in. They're really important. Charles Carroll of Carrollton, great founding father, one of my top 3. And this is somebody you should have in your repertoire whenever you hear somebody complaining about morality. because our founding fathers demanded it. And we're seeing it today. A country that's not moral, well, you're going to end up losing your country. You are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We'll be right back. Yeah. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show on a Founding Fathers Friday. We're talking about Charles Carlton of Carlton, and we're going over his religious quotes. And I'm doing this not because I'm trying to thump spirituality into anybody. I'm not. I'm just trying to reclaim what's in our history and what the left is trying to wash away, memory hole it in that is the interwebs. Gave an example of how there's websites that are dedicated to Charles Carlton of Charles Carroll of Carlton, excuse me. But again, it says always be prepared to make a defense of anyone who asks you for the reason for the hope that's in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. And I hope I'm doing that. I do. On religious toleration, designing and selfish men invented religious tests to exclude from posts of profit and trust their weaker or more conscientious fellow subjects. Thus, to secure themselves, all ye worshippers of government. And again, he's not saying that he's allowing other religions. He's talking about specifically about the different sects of Christianity, whether it be the Quakers, whether that be the Protestants, the Puritans. Someone sent me this too, and I want to make sure that I use this. People talk about uh, our culture going right down into the drain. Do you know that there was a LGBTQ Pride Night in the NHL? I thought the NHL got rid of that, but not in Nashville. What is the name of the Nashville hockey team? The Predators. So on LGBTQ night, you've got the Predators taking on the New Jersey Devils. Sometimes the script just writes itself on LGBTQ night. And wouldn't you know it, the Devil won 4-2 over the Predators. What's that just go to show you? The Predators are doing something that probably felt good in the moment, but the Devil ultimately got you. Someone sent that in. And then someone else actually said, thank you for sharing this. Catholics, as a Catholic, I didn't even know that this man existed. Yep. People don't, because we don't teach about it in our schools. Our school systems are teaching kids how to surf TikTok and create an app. Clay Edwards this morning, top morning radio show in Mississippi, was playing these spring breakers who didn't even know about the Revolutionary War or the Civil War. Man, what's that say about our spring breakers who don't even know who won the Civil War? Seriously, think about that. And Clay brought up a good argument. These kids are just there to cut loose and relax over spring break. I get it. But, they always say that America fight for freedom. It's in our DNA. It's in our blood. Liberty, freedom, America, roar. What I've come to realize is that this generation, you can either say it's never really suffered a real war type footing like 9/11, but that's not to say that they haven't experienced war, by the way. Their parents went off to fight in the global war on terror. It turned into something that we just went across the pond, the other side of the world to go fight the war, and then we come home. Men and women come back either broken or at least touched, or some of them died. And our youth never really understood what's going on. Most of these kids who are against the war in Iran can't even remember the embassy hostage situation. And it happened 47 years ago. What's the big deal? Their cell phones have got them so programmed into something that is so wicked and evil that they can't even understand and appreciate the history of the country that they live in and why we're doing the things that we're doing. I want to make sure I get these last couple quotes here from Charles Carroll of Carleton. On gratitude and blessings. He wrote this at age 89, by the way. Man, I hope I'm still writing like this at 89. Grateful to Almighty God for the blessings through Jesus Christ our Lord. And again, this is a guy who signed the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. through Jesus Christ our Lord. He had conferred on my beloved country her emancipation and on myself in permitting me, under circumstances of mercy, to live to an age of 89 years old and to survive to the 15th year of independence. You know, we often say that Mississippi is blessed because of the things that we've done, whether it be on abortion or and we say that we are not just in the Bible Belt, we're the buckle. Those are blessings that Charles understood that we had and have enjoyed, but we can lose it. On inconsistencies in government. This was also from the First Citizen. And remember, he had to write under a pseudonym for the longest time because he didn't want the backlash of all the Protestants and Methodists and whoever else was over there. Inconsistencies in all governments are to be met with, even if the English Constitution, the most perfect, which was ever established, some may be found. And all of this is saying is that our Constitution wasn't perfect. Declaration wasn't perfect. But it's the best thing going. And if we're not careful, we'll lose it. And every day that we don't acknowledge that we don't fight for those kind of things, and I'm not talking in Washington, D.C., I'm talking here in Jackson, in Rankin County, Madison County, Hinds County, Copiah County, Warren County, Yazoo County. Just our own neighborhoods. You are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show, and that's going to wrap up Founding Fathers Friday. I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I really appreciate it. We're going to take a commercial break. We will be right back. And we are back here at the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. Appreciate all the texts. Most of it was positive. One guy did call me a Fed plant. That I found that enjoyable. I assure you, I am not a Fed plant. Going to the local scene a little bit, Magnolia Tribune, Russ Latino has a opinion piece out today. And if this isn't the truth, ladies and gentlemen, it's like I'm telling you now. What's happening here in Mississippi is exactly what happened in Illinois back in the mid-1990s. Facts, not feelings, are our hard sell in teacher pay raise debate. Amid the pressure to quote-unquote do something, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you hear a politician say we have to do something, that is the first indication you want absolutely nothing done. Because when a politician does something, it's with a 99.98741% chance it's going to not be good. And I can remember this being a supervisor on the legislative side, and I can be as a highway commissioner on the administrative side. Whenever I heard the "do something" line, I immediately, it wasn't that I was an automatic no, but I immediately paused because that's not good. And in the mid pressure to quote unquote do something, and with the free ice cream on Friday vibes, the Mississippi House of Representatives and the Mississippi Senate have traded competing proposals for budget stretching teacher pay raises. Never mind that class size is going down. Never mind that our administrators are going up, not just in pay, but there are now more and more administrators per student. It makes no sense to me. We don't need more administrators. Actually, you know why we needed more administrators? To administrate more of the administration programs that administrate the administrators. The bureaucracy must expand to support the expanding bureaucracy. We should be figuring out ways to get rid of the administration and empower our teachers to do more. And let us not forget, we already did the math earlier this week where we found out that teachers make more pay than the average private sector pay in the state of Mississippi. As these proposals head to conference, the chambers have painted themselves into corners. The House passed a 5,000 bump in a single year earlier this session. The Senate responded with 6,000 over 3 years. Additional raises for special education teachers and assistants have also been proposed. And who's against education? You're heartless. You don't love the children. Education is the most important thing. Make sure your kid gets into college and can't write a paper, but wants to go get his master's degree in African lesbian studies. Additional raises for special education teachers assistants have also been proposed. In my head, I hear a fast talking auctioneer. Do I hear 7,000, 7,000, 775, 75, 75, 80, 80? And the thing is that the numbers are so astronomical that we can't even comprehend it. On salaries alone, the current proposed increases would cost in the range of $200 million a year annually. Think about that. $200 million annually, with another 30 to 40 million tacked on for PERS. This is what has got Illinois and so many other blue states in the trouble that it's in. And this was a comment that, not today, but yesterday. Andy, why do you always bring up Illinois? Because Mississippi is a carbon copy of Illinois 30 years from now, if we don't stop what's going on here. It also comes on the heels of a $5,100 bump in pay in 2022, with built-in annual increases and larger increases every year for fifth year of service. In this respect, the teachers find themselves uniquely situated to receive are uniquely situated relative to almost all other public sector employees who have seen nowhere near the raises and do not receive automatic bumps. Only the teachers. I'm not mad at the teachers. Everybody's got to get theirs. But what we're doing is we are bankrupting the state of Mississippi faster than we can take care of it. Now, it's already been proven that our class size is smaller, and smaller sizes are good because you have more one-on-one individual education or teaching opportunities. That's good. The public lens has been told there's a massive teacher shortage in Mississippi. A release from the Mississippi Department of Education last December put the number at nearly 4,000, raising crisis-level alarm bells. I know what we'll do. We'll throw more money at it to get more people who aren't qualified to teach as teachers, and then we'll all complain when the teaching isn't as good as it is, so we're going to have to throw more money at it. The vacancies are almost as often attributed to pay and the legislature alleged underfunding of education. Let me tell you, that is the one thing between the state and federal government. Education, there's no shortage of funding. It might be improper administration of those funds, as we've seen. It is possible that the teacher shortage exploded when MDE's own numbers show an improvement in student-to-teacher ratio. With nearly 2 fewer students per teacher in the system, it seems dubious. And he goes through and he just continues to point out how the only thing that can save the education system in Mississippi and the United States, for that matter, is more money. No one wants to look at poor systems. No one wants to talk about actual curriculum, that new magic math that they have out there. When I watch my daughter do math and how I do math, she's amazed at how quick I can do it, how quick the Sweet Bee can do it. In this new special math, I can't even Common Core math. They're dumbing down our kids, but they'll remember their passcode to their iPhone. They'll figure out how to go search out the things that they shouldn't be looking at on Snap. They are uniquely qualified to swipe right, swipe up, whatever. What I really like about Russ's work here at Magnolia Tribune, and you should go look at it, and I'll tweet it. It compares Mississippi teachers' public pay to every other type of Mississippi 4-year degree worker. The average salary of a Mississippi teacher is $54,975. The average Mississippi 4-year degree worker, $50,820. They're both too low. No. The economy can pay what the economy can pay. And I just got a text in from Lindsey Beckham. You will never believe who's going to be on the show with Lindsey Beckham this afternoon from 12 to 1. None other than Russ Latino himself, Mr. Magnolia Tribune. That's cool. I might actually hang out and listen. Because the work here that needs to be done is critical. And this is just my analysis on it. Just wait till Russ gets in there and say, well, Andy had this right, but I don't agree with him on this, this, and this. That's fine. MDE reported average teacher salary of $54,975. When you factor in the 18.4% state contribution to PERS on their behalf, the annual compensation cost goes up to $65,000. People in the retirement system pre-2011 that started teaching at 22 can retire, begin collecting benefits at age 47. For people post-2011 conditions, now is age 52. Dude, I'll tell you what. Being a teacher anywhere pays. Being an administrator is even better. The average salary for someone with a bachelor's degree in Mississippi is $50,820. And they have to pay for their own health care. They don't have the PERS stuff going in. Ladies and gentlemen, there is nobody, and I know Lindsay's going to hit this hard. There's nobody who wants bad education out there. But we absolutely have to start looking at solutions other than throw more money at it and see what happens, which is what all politicians seem to do these days. You know, we still can't get all the pornography out of the schools. I have clips on that I wanted to get to today. It just didn't happen. We've got all sorts of problems that we can actually go and attack without throwing money at it. So why don't we do those things? Well, if we're not spending money, then we're not solving problems. Tell that to any small business person. You are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show on 1039 WYAB. We're going to take our last break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show. It's been a great week of radio. I'm really grateful and everybody who's tuned in, texted, called. I think the conversation's been really good. I think we've expanded the thought processes and ideas in a lot of people. I know I've learned a lot. Special shout out to Brother Junk and Brother Rick. I did not even get a chance to get into the farming stuff, but if you actually start researching fires on farms and agricultural production facilities, meat packing plants, egg production plants, vegetable packing plants, you are going to be surprised. Also, everybody's all of a sudden now it's cool to talk about chemtrails. Remember how you used to get that side eye look back in the day when you would sit there and say, "Yeah, I believe in the chemtrail stuff." I've got stories about how they're finding all this ammonium nitrate in the soil, up over 5% of what it should be, and it's incredible. I haven't had my soil tested in 5 years, but I think I might go do that. The University of Mississippi State Extension campus over there. If you bring in soil samples, I think it was $8 when we did it last time. I think we're going to go do that again. I want to see if I have some of this stuff in my soil. Unknown texter calls in and she did an experiment where she started germinating heirloom seeds and GMO seeds. And wouldn't you know it, the GMO seeds are sprouting faster and growing quicker than the heirloom seeds? I mean, it's just mad. And people sit there and look at me like I'm crazy when I talk about this stuff, but we are so focused on the World Cup or what's going on in DC that we can't even really pay attention to our own food supply. Why? Because the Kroger's always open and the shelves are always full. So let's go worry about Iran because the supermarket's going to be there. Don't you know the food ferry brings it to the Kroger? It's fascinating to me. I'm really excited. Coming up next is Lindsay Beckham. She's going to have Russ Latino on, I'm sure, talking education. And Lindsay and I agree a lot on education, and there's some stuff that we don't agree on. But we're not throwing daggers at each other either. So it's going to be great to hear that. I'm really excited to hear what Brother Russ has to say. I'm interested in Lindsay's opinion too. You know, she's been very much a crusader in getting this public choice bill through the Senate and the House. And it's not where she wants it to be yet. And I'm sure that's going to be something that's discussed. I'm truly worried about the quality of education that our kids get in public school and the financial implications that are going to come from anything that we do. And as someone who's been a bureaucrat, who's been a politician, the size of government needs to shrink, not expand. So anything that doesn't include a dissolution of some of the administrators, I think that's going to be difficult. Well, as we get ready to wrap up the weekend, you know, it's always time for me to wax poetic on the sweet bee. And it's awesome. We're going to have a public outreach tomorrow at Life Church in Brandon. Come by Life Church between 8 and 11. We're going to have free Chick-fil-A chicken breakfast sandwiches. Come say hi. We just want to get to know you a little bit. I should be there, Lord willing. Come say hi. I'd love to do that. Then we're having the Hot Ones Challenge over at the Kilburn's house. It's going to be great. You're going to see me eat the last dab, everybody. We're going to video it. It's going to be great. I'm also going to have the bomb. Going to do it all. That guy went to Chris Evans, I think is his name. He went to Crystal Lake Central. I went to Cary Grove. We're like rivals. So I'm going to try to do his shtick a little bit better than him. I know I won't be able to do it, but I'm going to try. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all have a wonderful and blessed weekend. Tell your spouses that you love them. Tell your mama that you appreciate them. Thank your dad for all the tough discipline that he gave you. And guess what? We'll be back in about 46 hours to do it all again. Until then, everybody, take care, be blessed, yes, and amen.